Well, guys, after almost a year, the highly anticipated premiere of Fargo has finally returned, but it has been worth the wait, and is the story of the season still worth following? Let's find out. Hey guys, come over the season premiere of Fargo, Season 3, Episode 1, The Laws of Vacant Places. And guys, it has been forever since this show has been on, pretty much since 2015. And if you guys have never seen my Fargo reviews before, because that very well could be the case, you could just be, coming into this show not knowing that I review and be like, holy shit, you review Fargo? That's great. Well, if you guys want to get my quick thoughts, I really love Season 1. I think that is a very ambitious first season of TV with a very good, compelling story. Really shows you can do when you have just a small cast and really great performances. Just a really great season. Season 2, however, I thought was a million times better. I loved everything about Season 2. I loved how much bigger of a story it was. I love the 60s feel. Kirsten Dunst gave, I think, the best performance out of anyone in that show. She was such an incredible, just such a, probably the best performance I think she's ever given. She was just amazing there, such a visionary. Just Noah Hawley in general is amazing in this show, what he does, and ever since Legion, I have been anxiously waiting for this premiere, and I gotta say, as a whole, how was this premiere? Once again, this was a really great premiere. I really did love this premiere overall. It definitely did not let me down. It definitely was worth the wait, but despite that, I could possibly see this being my least favorite season of Fargo. Maybe not the worst, but I could see this being my least favorite season. And I'm going to talk about why as we get to the premiere. But let's just get into the premiere because, as usual, there's definitely a lot to talk about. This was definitely a simple premiere. Like, it wasn't as complex as I think the Season 2 one was, but let's just get into this premiere because I definitely do want to talk about everything that happened. Now, first, we're going to get into the first scene because much like The Leftovers, we start off this first episode not in the time period it's going to take place. Time period it's going to take place is 2010, but we start off this premiere in 1988 in East Berlin, of all places, not even in Fargo, in East Berlin, and a lot of people might be wondering, why didn't we see the Fargo title card? I'm pretty sure it's because we weren't in Fargo at the time, so it didn't really make sense to put the Fargo title card there. So basically, we open in the office of a German military officer who's interrogating this man whom he insists is Yerky Gurka, and the man that killed his girlfriend that day. And basically, we know very well that we can tell at least, from what we can gather here, this is not Yerky Gurka. This man is in fact Jacob Unger, a leader, and he is unfairly being accused of this crime that he really had nothing to do with. This crime was not his fault or anything like that, so immediately we're feeling bad for him. Basically, no matter what the man's rational objections are, no matter what alibi he presents, no matter how hard he insists he's not the person they're looking for, the officer simply wants him to agree to the narrative they lay out. He's not listening to him at all. Basically, this officer, he thinks he knows what's going on. He thinks that this man is lying through his teeth, and he doesn't trust a word that this man is saying. And basically, we realize this is what the Cold War was all about, and the officer's last words are to ask for the truth, but what he means is that the man should just accept his fate, that, he got him, he's going to be, unfairly, he's going to not be exonerated, he's probably going to be executed, possibly, and, basically, the two things are the man in prison is Jacob Ungerlder, and Jacob's wife was actually alive when he was arrested, and this seems like a clear case of mistaken identity, but what's great about this scene is that we don't really know who's right here. Is the man right, or is Yuri Gurka right? Is he actually Jacob Unger, is he actually Yerky Gurka? Is he just impersonating Gurka? We don't exactly know, but it really does make the case of the whole, this is a true story, this is a true story, the events are as it happened. I really did love the way that was done here. I thought that definitely was a really good way to start things off. This is eventually going to connect to the main story. I don't know exactly how right now, but I definitely looking forward to seeing how this really does tie in. I have kind of an idea of how this is going to tie in a little bit later on, but this is a really great way to start things off. It kind of felt very jarring because you kind of felt like you were watching the wrong show, but the way Noah Hawley did that I thought was very smart to do. It really does show one of the main themes of the show, which is injustice, and I thought that was definitely very well portrayed here. So we then cut to 2010, where most of the story is going to take place, and that's something that's really cool, is that most of this does take place not that many years ago in 2010. Basically, we pivot to Emmit Stussy, who is the parking lot king of Minnesota, and he simply wants to track down some people to whom he owes money, and pay attention. We know this is obviously going to become important, and he's meeting with his business partner, Sy, and a guy who introduced them to their mysterious benefactors, so we don't know exactly what's going on. You know, obviously they're borrowing money from someone who simply disappeared. We don't know what that's all about, but again, I thought that was definitely very interesting, the way we got into this story, and basically, we then cut to an anniversary party for Emmit and his wife, Stella, and they've been together forever. He's telling the story that probably everyone who knows them has heard about, and you can tell everyone, you know, they're laughing about it, but his brother Ray is in the background, and Ray is kind of like the underdog, I think, of this story. Like, he's gonna be the one who, there's always that one character in Fargo who, you know, he really wanted to make something of himself. He really could have been a lot more, but instead, he's just an ordinary guy with a very mundane job, and that, my friend, and that, of course, is Ray. Ray is that character in this season, and, you know, you really do feel bad for him, because you see him, he's there with his new girlfriend, Nikki, and when he gets Emmit alone to ask for money, it becomes clear there definitely is some sort of animosity between them, and Ray actually blames it on a stamp that their father left them. Now, you're thinking, oh, it's just a stamp, why is that such a big deal? Well, you see, there's a lot more to it than that. Essentially, Ray was originally bequeathed a stamp collector, but argued to trade Emmit for his inheritance, which was a Corvette, and they made the swap, and years later, their fates have turned out quite differently. Emmit, like I said, is the parking lot king, and Ray is just a parole officer. That's really all he is. He's just a parole officer, and basically, he's the kind of guy who's upset about his lack of success, but he's still on the right side of things, and I thought, again, that was definitely very well introduced. And Nikki is a career criminal parolee, who he's not supposed to be dating, really. You know, really, he should not be dating her because she was a criminal. She has a very bad background, but they fell in love, and fuck it. They're dating now. They're engaged. They're actually engaged, and Ray wants some money to buy her a nice ring, and despite their looks, Ray actually is the younger brother, believe it or not, and I thought this setup was definitely very good. You got two very different brothers, two very different career paths, and that was something that I thought they introduced quite well here. I definitely liked the way that was done. I thought all of that was really good. But as we see, you know, this really is not easy to do. The Stussy parking lot empire hit some bumps 2 years back and needed a loan, and without any legitimate banks willing to lend them the money, Emmit and Sy turned to a firm represented by a broker, whose name sounds like Ermentraub, and now Stussy's back in the black and ready to pay back the money, and we'll get more into that in a little bit, but I thought all of that was, like I said, was definitely very well set up. I really like getting into these characters. We can tell these characters, you know, they've gone through some really interesting, very interesting situation, and it's obviously kind of, you know, unfortunate what they've gone through, but I thought the way we introduced to them, so different, but also being played by the same actors is very well done, and that's something that I definitely really did love. Emmit and Ray easily are the most compelling characters of this entire thing, and if they were not in this premiere, I don't think I would have liked this as much as I did. They definitely are the most interesting part of all this. But then, of course, there's Nikki. Like I said, Nikki is Ray's girlfriend, and very much is the Peggy of this story. If you guys remember, Peggy Blomquist, I think, was the best character of Fargo Season 2, simply because how persistent, how driven, and how much she was controlling Ed. In every way, that's what she was. She controlled Ed. I think deep down she did love him, but many times she was the one wearing the pants in this relationship, and that's essentially that of Nikki Longo here. Nikki Longo is in every way wearing the pants in this relationship, and I really did love what we got with this character. I thought she definitely was very well done. Nikki Swango. I mean, she definitely was very interesting, and she pushes, but not too hard, about Ray getting the money from his brother. You get the sense that she's not so bad, and when she insists he walk her back to her open car door, you also get the sense that she's in charge of this relationship. So immediately we know definitely she is very driven, she knows exactly what she wants, and she's got really big plans for herself, basically, and they're going to become these bridge champions, yet the card game, she wants to, she's into gambling and things like that, and after getting a few wins under their belt, she feels they'll be able to get themselves a sponsorship and enter the world of big money bridge, and they get a third place, they win at this local tournament, they plan to keep going, but Ray can't let go of the stamp situation with Emmett, obviously. I mean, that's something that's always going to be on their minds, is this whole stamp situation. So basically, when he blackmails another of his parolees, one who actually has failed a drug test, which we do see some, unfortunately, very hard close-ups of that, which you didn't think we were going to, but we did. I was surprised that we got such big close-ups of all that, but I thought that they always kind of show things like that, but Ray will forget all about the positive test, which I thought was a good way to, I thought that definitely was very well good, and I like the story here. I like the way we had, him trying to blackmail this guy, he knows that he obviously is on the wrong side of things. I thought that definitely, again, was very well handled. All of this, the setup, I thought was really good here. I really did like the setup, getting into that whole relationship, with Nikki and Ray. Like I said, I like how Nikki really is the one in charge. Even though Ray is, I'd say, a lot tougher than that of Ed, he still is very much down his luck. She's the one who's a lot more confident, and that's something I definitely did like seeing. I thought that definitely was very well done. But basically, he uses the knowledge he's got to talk to Maurice LaFoy into stealing the remaining stamp from their father's collection back from his brother Emmett, and Maurice, unfortunately, is an idiot. I mean, this guy is completely incompetent, he has a lot, he's also a stoner, and he isn't terribly smart, and he promptly smokes himself out, and we'll get into what ends up going with Maurice a little bit later, but I thought, like I said, this whole thing was definitely very interesting. What we got with Gloria and Ray, I mean, not Gloria and Ray, I mean, Nikki and Ray, sorry, there are a lot of characters, Nikki and Ray, I like what we got here. I thought that definitely was very well done, and I thought that story, again, was also very interesting. This episode, we need to talk about one other character, and that would be V.M. Vargas. Now, he shows up one evening at Stussy headquarters ready to discuss the loan that Emmett wanted, and he's a replacement for Ermintrout. And actually, he's not interested in talking about a loan. He says it was an investment, and they don't, Narwhal, the film that Varga works for, doesn't want the money back. They want to use the Stussy business to launder their funds, and despite some attempts at blustery protestation by Sy, Varga and his mouthful of teeth shut down any discussion. His people have already accessed Stussy's computer system, and now it's laundry time. So this guy could really put them in a bad place. We don't exactly know what Varga is going to do, but this character is very interesting. Such a badass. I've always really liked David Thewlis. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I really loved what he did as his character. He really was phenomenal here. Just this one scene, you can already tell he's going to be quite a problem for Emmett, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where he's going to go, because he definitely was very interesting. But back to Maurice, like I said, this guy is quite incompetent. He's there to steal the stamp, and he doesn't exactly go the way that you want it to. He particularly bumbles the assignment. The following ways, the piece of incriminating paper actually blows out of his car window when he tries to throw a joint out of it. He tries to work from his memory of what was on the paper, remembers the wrong town. He stops at this gas station in that wrong town and looks up, and Emmett Stussy in the phone book, then rips that page out of the book in front of the clerk witness and drives to the address of Mr. Ennis Stussy. Now, in order to talk to Mr. Ennis Stussy, we need to talk about the other character that is a big part of this, that being Gloria Burgle. Now, there always is that one officer in the show, and Gloria Burgle is that officer. And she is the stepfather, actually, Ennis is the stepfather of Gloria, who is the local police chief, and Gloria and her son Nathan are celebrating Nathan's birthday at Ennis's house, and where Ennis presents Nathan with a handmade carving of a man and a boy on a camping trip, and when Gloria and Nathan are on their way home later, Nathan realizes he actually forgot the gift on the table. Now, Gloria also is recently divorced because her husband actually turned out to be gay, and now married a man named Dale, and that whole conversation talking about Dale and, you know, what he went through, that was really funny. Ennis's just reaction I thought was actually pretty funny, but basically, she wants to return immediately to retrieve it so Ennis won't think he didn't appreciate it, because he forgot the gift on the table, and when they arrive back at the house, the front door is open, and upon a quick investigation, Gloria actually finds Ennis dead, bound to a chair in his kitchen. She hears a noise upstairs. She investigates and finds Ennis's death ransacked, and she also finds a loose floorboard, and underneath it there's this metal box that contains some old sci-fi novels, The Dungeon Lurk, The Planet With, written by a Thaddeus Mobley, and the cover of The Planet With features two men in the exact same position, and the figures in the carving that Ennis made for Nathan are in. So the question is, was Ennis possibly this Thaddeus Mobley character? We don't really know who this is or what's really going on there, but it's clear there's a lot more to this than we think. There's a lot that Gloria doesn't know about her father. I'm definitely interested in getting into that story too. I thought that also was very interesting. So with all those pieces in play, it really all culminates in the finale where we see, while celebrating their Bridge 20 finish with a bath at the Swango home, Ray and Nikki are interrupted by Maurice. And, you know, they're in the bath and everything. The second that they got in that bath, I knew something was going to go down. I'm like, we're not just seeing them in a bath just to see them in a bath. He lets himself into the apartment, and he tells Ray that he got the stamps for him, but things took a left turn. And Maurice was surprised by how old Emmit really was, and how modest his rich guy home was, which is when Ray realizes Maurice went to exactly the wrong town, the wrong house. He killed someone. He brought him back some postage stamps he took from the dead guy's desk, Ennis's desk, of course, and it turns out that he's the one, who actually killed Ennis. Yeah, this is Maurice who did it. He killed exactly the wrong guy, and this whole tussle ensues when Ray berates Maurice. Maurice pulls a gun on him, and Mr. LaFay also demands, you know, he demands $5,000 unless he squeal about Ray's plan, and he gives Ray and his lady a day to come with the dough, and obviously Ray is not going to do that. I mean, Maurice did not hold his end of the deal, so, you know, naturally he's not going to do that, and as Maurice leaves, we see Nikki. She begins counting, and the second that Maurice left, I'm like, something's gonna happen here. You know, the second that we kept seeing him, Nikki begins counting. She runs around the apartment looking for something, and she continues counting. She finds the screwdriver, runs to her window air conditioning unit, and she reaches a certain number. She asks Ray to look outside from her 4th floor window and see if Maurice has left the building yet. He has, and is standing immediately below the window. She and Ray pry the AC unit loose. Ray gives it one big kick with his bare foot, and that's all it takes. It tumbles to the ground, and we see it falls right on top of Maurice's head. His body plops to the ground. His head becomes a large red splotch on the sidewalk, and that is the case that is going to be investigated this season. Gloria is going to go after that, but also trying to figure out who actually killed Ennis and how that all went down, and she goes on the case. She sees what happened. You know, she sees all of this like yellow, you know, she sees all of the yellow construction tape and things like that, and she knows immediately that something definitely has gone down, and that's basically how this all ends. But really good stuff overall. Let's just get this from here and where I think it's going to go from here. Because when it comes down to Fargo, there's really something that sticks out about the show that is different from other anthologies on TV, and that is that unlike other anthologies such as American Crime Story or American Horror Story, American Crime, those shows always reuse certain actors, but Fargo has yet to do that, and this season, by far, is their biggest cast yet. I mean, everyone in here is very well recognized. There's not really that one actor that no one really doesn't know. Everyone here, like I said, is very well-renowned actors. But let's first talk about Ewan McGregor, because what a challenge he has this season. I think more than really any other actor in the show has ever had, because not only is Ewan McGregor playing very different character than he's played before, but he's playing two very distinct polar opposite type characters, and I really did love that here. Emmit and Ray Stussy are really interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with them, and it's crazy to think that this is the same actor, but it is, and it's mainly because of how great they were able to do the makeup and how they made them look just so different. You know, you got Emmit, he's clean cut, he looks like a businessman, he's very successful, you can tell is very determined to bring down Ray, and, you know, he wants to remain in control of this firm, and he wants to have the money and all that kind of stuff. So you got that. And then you have Ray, who, like I said, he's more of the underdog. He's not as in control as Emmit is. He wants the stamp, definitely, but now that he's committed this crime, this is definitely going to put him and his brother in a whole world of trouble, especially after what really went down now. We don't really know what's going to happen there, but I thought the way these two characters were done, I thought were both handled very well. I thought, again, it's crazy to think they're both played by the same actor, but Ian McGregor did such a great job, not only with playing these two very distinctly different characters, but also finding a way to really make contrasts between them and also be able to sustain an accent. I mean, it really is a lot for an actor to do, and for the most part, McGregor is up to the task, and this is by far, I think, one of his most impressive roles to date. He definitely was fantastic here, and mainly is the one thing that really does elevate the season, I think. Because as for the rest of the cast, they really are great. I don't think there's really anyone here that's bad. The problem is most of these characters we have, in fact, seen before. Especially that of Carrie Coon as Gloria Burgle. Now, I love Carrie Coon. I really do. I think she's one of the best actresses working today. I think she is such a revelation on The Leftovers. Just incredible. The show really did get lucky by introducing her, and I'm glad to see she is getting more work. But I'm not gonna lie, this is basically the same kind of character we've seen 2 times before. The only difference with this character of Gloria Burgle is that it does connect her to the brothers in a way that we didn't have before. You know, Molly, she did not have a connection to Lorne and to Lorne and to Lester in season 1, and Gus did not really have a connection to Ed and Peggy. He just knew them, and, you know, Molly knew Lester and Malvo. That's just kind of how it worked. However, Gloria, on the other hand, operates in a completely different way because she is, in fact, related to the Stussys. You know, that was her stepfather. So she definitely does have a very familiar connection. And I'm not just talking familiar in the sense she's aware of them. I think she definitely does have some sort of, you know, family connection there. And I think that really does connect her in a different way. Aside from that, though, she is kind of the same kind of character we've seen. You know, she's the cop. She's going through sort of a tragedy in her life, and she's trying to, you know, help out her son and take care of him. You know, she's trying to be a good mom while she's also trying to investigate here. I thought she definitely was really great, but I will not lie, she was probably my least favorite part of this episode. Out of all the characters, she was my least favorite. I was expecting a lot from her because it is Carrie Coon, and she still is great in the role, don't get me wrong. It's just because of how much more interesting everyone is, she, in my opinion, was the weakest of the episode. Now, maybe she's going to get more interesting, especially once we connect what's going on with the whole Thaddeus Mobley character. I think that definitely is going to be a big part of how she becomes more interesting, but right now, she just didn't really do what I wanted her to do for me. Maybe she'll become more interesting as the show goes on. Right now, though, I think she is the weakest link, and that's saying a lot because of how great Carrie Coon really is. She's a great actress, just the character in general, in my opinion, is very much something we've seen before. And maybe it's because of how great Mary Elizabeth Winstead is in her role as Nikki Swango, because she is fantastic. Carrie Coon's great too, but Nikki Swango really stood out to me a lot. And even her character, though, is quite familiar to that of Peggy Blomquist. In many ways, she is very much the same character, but in many ways, she's not as well. Peggy Blomquist, I think, was a lot more vindictive. I think she was a lot more, you know, she loved her husband a lot more. She was a little bit more crazy than Nikki was, and Nikki is definitely crazy, but she's definitely more of a criminal, and she's definitely well aware of what she's doing. I mean, she's not trying to hide what she's doing. She's very much in control of the relationship, and I love that she was the one calling the shots most of the time. Like, she was the one counting the air conditioner. You know, he just kind of kicked it in. She told him to burn the stamps. He did as she said, and I love how in control she really is in everything. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I've loved everything I've seen her in, all the way back to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. She's such a great actress. I really did love what she did here, and I can't wait to see what else she does as the show goes on. She is a fantastic character, and I'm definitely interested in where she's really going to go. And then the really only two other characters to talk about. David Thewlis as this character of Varga is really, really intimidating. We don't know exactly where Vargas stands, but clearly this is someone who is not just going to do what Emmett tells him to do. He has a much different intent than that. I think he kind of wants to take over his firm. I think he wants to put it to his own good use, and this guy is just so intimidating. A lot of people are comparing him to Mike Milligan and how much more soft-spoken he is, and yeah, he definitely is different from that of Mike Milligan. Now, Mike Milligan, I think, is one of the greatest characters this show has had. Was just fantastic in season 2. Such a great... I mean, he was nominated for an Emmy. He was amazing in that season. But just as intimidating, I think, is Varga. Even more intimidating because of his eyes, the way he looks at Emmett, and, you know, Sy. You can tell he has definitely more of an evil intent. I'm definitely interested in seeing what he gets into. The only actor who didn't stick out to me in this episode was Michael Stolberg as Sy. I didn't dislike Sy. I think he definitely is going to be a very interesting character as the show goes on. It's just this particular episode, I didn't really find much with him. I think he definitely had stuff going on, but because of how great everyone else was, he just didn't really stick out to me as much as the other actors did. He's still great, but I do feel he's going to be a little bit more interesting as the show goes on a little bit later. We'll have to see what happens with him. Overall, I really did like everyone here. I think everyone really did do a great job. And as usual, they really do know how to cast everyone in this show. That's something that the show always gets down perfectly. So like I said, the cast here is definitely very good. I thought that definitely was very well done. My main problem with this premiere, though, was really the directing and the writing. Because the directing here I thought was definitely very well done. I don't really have a problem with the directing. The tone of the show, you know, it's still a black comedy. It still has, you know, that undercut of comedy and drama. It still balances that stuff out very well in the great way that Fargo does. My main problem with this premiere is that it feels very, very familiar. And because of that, a lot of the, you know, Fargo formula is what we expect to happen in this premiere. You know, since we've had 2 seasons of this show, we know there's going to be some sort of crime, and we know there is going to be some huge death. We know those 2 things are going to happen, so when we cut to the death of Ennis, and when we cut to the air conditioner death, sure, they're still very effective, but they're less effective because we expected it to happen. Like, I knew very well that Maurice was going to be the one to die. I had this big feeling, this guy's an idiot, there's no way they're getting through to him. They usually kill off the idiot or useless type character, and I had a feeling it was going to be him that ended up dying. Now, I will say, they did a good job with trying to change it up and not make it a gun for 2 seasons now. It's been, in the first season, it was, I believe, an axe. Yeah, it was an axe that he killed her with. Actually, no, it wasn't an axe. It was like, he killed her with a toaster, I believe, or something like that. Yeah, he hit her with, like, a toaster, or, it was actually a rolling pin. That's what he hit her with. He hit her with a rolling pin in Season 1. Season 2, it was a gun, but I liked that this season it was an air conditioner. I thought that was a really cool way to change things up, get a different way for him to die, and it was a little bit sillier, too, with him dying through an air conditioner. It was funny. I honestly thought it was funny the way that was done. The guy was an idiot in the first place. He could have easily ran away if he saw the air conditioner fall, but he was too much of an idiot and too much of a lost cause for them to, not kill him. He obviously had to die, and I thought that was definitely well done. But like I said, a lot of the characters feel quite familiar. A lot of the story is feeling quite familiar, and I'm hoping that the whole brothers rivalry does add something new to the show. Because, yeah, I do love a lot of the things going on here. I love the overall crime. I love the story going on. I think all that is definitely very interesting. I'm just worried the show is going to start to feel a little bit too familiar than it has in previous seasons. And that is not really a show problem. That's more of a problem of Noah Hawley just needs to really change things up, I think. I think definitely he tried to change things up here, but I think it's more because the show has done a lot of that. You know, Season 1 was like that, and this very much feels like Season 1. Less than Season 2, because Season 2 is a much bigger story. It was a period piece. This season doesn't feel that way. It feels more closer home, closer to Season 1, and I'm getting that same Season 1 feel that Season 3 did, just like we had Malvo and Lester, and that being the most important relationship. I think, you know, Ray and Emmett, that's the most important relationship. Yes, I know they're brothers, but it is kind of similar to what happened there. There is no, like, Malvo type character. I think Varga is going to be our Malvo type character this season. But again, I was overall impressed with the way this turned out. The cinematography was great. As usual, the show has immaculate cinematography. It always makes you feel like you're watching a movie. It's incredibly well done. Just the close-up in the beginning, the way that they panned over, like I said, to the 1980s, the way that whole sequence was done was incredible. I love the way that was handled. I love the way the camera always does, like, the split screens. I've always loved that. I think that's really cool the way they do that. I've just always loved the cinematography with the show. It's one of the best things about it. I become obsessed with it, and I could literally do a whole review just about how great the cinematography really was. The score was also fantastic. I really did love the score here. Again, I think just like every season with Fargo, the score is a very important part of the show, because it really does show, okay, this is the time period it's in, this kind of music that's going to be played, and just like they had really great 60s music, this feels very modern, and I was very happy with that. I think the fact that it is modern, again, is an advantage it has over the other seasons, because season 1, it was 2007, season 2, it was the 60s, now it is basically modern, and I do like that it is a little more modern than the previous seasons. The editing I thought was also fine. No scenes really dragged on. Maybe some scenes dragged on a bit too long. But overall, guys, I still really did love this premiere. Like I said, I have a feeling the season isn't going to be as impactful, and I'm hoping that's not the case. It's just this particular premiere, it didn't hook me in the way the other two premieres did, because it does feel quite familiar, and it feels like something I have in fact seen before. But there's enough in there that definitely is going to keep me watching. I definitely did love this premiere overall. I am going to give Fargo Season 3, Episode 1, The Law of Vacant Places, a 4.5 out of 5, or an A-. So overall, guys, this is premiere of Fargo. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts, and I did enjoy this premiere overall. I don't want you guys to think I didn't. I did like a lot of stuff in there. It's just a lot of it, like I said, felt very familiar to me. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.